Welcome to another game cast by Gwyn and Rohan. That is GR StarCraft casting for you. We're going to be casting this Protoss vs Zerg here on LzHsAint Caverns, and this is actually LzHsAint, LZuruha's very own saint, playing on his Southeast Asia account, Soul Awe. And just to briefly talk about what the Zerg's doing here, it looks like we have a 6 pool going on. Why don't we jump straight into this matchup in light of this, Rohans?
Yeah, for those of you who don't know what a 6 pool is, basically he's not building any harvesters, he's not building any drones to, like standard play. He just opted to wait until he had 150 minerals, throws down the spawning pool, and he's going to try to apply some early pressure and try to end this game within a couple of minutes. We do see it more often on 2-player maps like this one, this being LzHsAint Caverns, one of the most popular StarCraft 2 maps out there. And he knows exactly where his opponent is going to spawn, so this is definitely the style of map that you want to try to do some of this. I guess you could call it cheese, because I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
I would definitely agree with you on that cheese call, but it looks like, Saint gonna go ahead and pop right in here. Gonna see that pool almost about to complete, and I think Hectic overmade workers there. He's up at 8, which only allows him to make 2 sets of Zerglings, so that's 4 Zerglings, and then of course he is going to have to build an Overlord. I'm not sure if that is intentional or not. Maybe this is a more economical version of the 6 pool that I'm unaware of, but we'll have to see as this game progresses. Early lings like this, these are gonna arrive at the base there in probably 2 minutes and 30 seconds, 2 minutes and 40 seconds, which is really early. Of course, these gateways not gonna have any zealots out when those lings get here.
Yeah, these are very early. He has opted to throw down a second gate, and I'm kind of curious to see if he's going to wall this off. But our Zerg user has actually opted to just start transitioning into drones. So I believe this is the only pressure we're going to see is these 4 Zerglings. So if he manages to kill a couple drones, it'll probably be worth it. So see how this goes. Excuse me, probes.
And I believe a little bit of a blunder there for the Zerg player. Pulling back right before that pylon went down could have snuck in. Usually what I do if I do an early pool like this, I try and get my Zerglings into the main and target that first pylon.
Yeah, and they're just working away, and the LzHsAint is actually on the wrong side, so I think he's actually going to lose this gateway, Gwen. Kind of an unfortunate thing there. I feel like if he would have he probably thought that there was probably more Zerglings coming, so he didn't want to...
It does look like he does lose the gateway. Not sure if he got the cancel off in time. Gonna go ahead and throw down just another gateway. Looks like he's rallied the correct direction with that. And Zerg's got to be careful at this point because, he's got Zerglings out, but Zerglings are really not that good against Zealots. And he's having to pull back now. Only 4 Zerglings, 2 of them hurt, cannot take on 2 Zealots. 4 Zerglings is an even, well, with Micro, I guess 3 Zerglings is an even trade with 1 Zealot.
Yeah, and interesting enough, we're actually seeing a gas go down and a roach warren go down, so he's going to follow the cheese up with more unconventional play here. These 2 Zealots are marching into his base. I think with a couple lings popping up though in this queen, he'll probably be able to fend off these 2, but I think Protoss is in a pretty good position. He's they're actually pretty even on the harvester count. It's only 7. It's actually 17 to 17 as we speak. So would expect him to probably start researching Warp Gate very soon and maybe transition into some tech since he has that gas advantage.
Certainly, and we do see, still some lings out on the map. I'm interested to see what, Zerg is going to do, what Hectic is going to do with that next bit of gas that he gets, whether he's going to get ling speed or whether he'll opt to just get some roaches out for security. Looks like he, has thrown down an expansion. They're going to go ahead and expand after that. A little bit of a missed rally point there, sending some newly created drones to the wrong expansion. But poking the front, we've got 4 Zealots out and 1 Stalker, 5 Zealots out. That could easily clean up this force of lings in a direct engagement, forcing some roaches to be produced now as those gateway units poach out into the map.
Definitely, and he's not getting Zergling speed, which the more and more stalkers that pop out now are actually a pretty big deal because they can just endlessly micro these lings off creep, plus the fact that there's so many Zealots, as you mentioned, Zerglings not being very good against those. He is walled in, so I would expect him maybe eventually to just either go and attack and leave that pylon there, or just warp outside of it, or eventually just kill that pylon so he has a ramp into his base, or excuse me, a way into his base.
Certainly, and we do see 2 additional gates going down in the Protoss base. Looks like he's going to be transitioning into what I guess would be a delayed 4-gate after that initial 2-gate pressure. But second queen popping out for Zerg now, going to send the first one down to that expansion after laying a creep tumor. And we should see, kind of a little bit of explosion of Zerg economy. It looks at 8 drones in production. But he needs to be careful because the timing on a push out from Protoss here, as soon as those gates finish and Warp Gate is finished, could be pretty deadly.
Yeah, and I think he's going to squeak out just enough drones here, and I think he might be able to build enough roaches to hold off this 4-gate. Time will tell, of course. We do have Zergling speed nearing the halfway mark on completion, so that will definitely help in the engagements, but it really depends on how many sentries he gets out, and he's actually opting to just expand here, so I don't know if this is one of those fake expansions and then he's going to cancel and push out with a forward pylon, or if he's actually going to let this thing finish. But with a lot of that crazy Ling Roach aggression we've seen, there's so many different forms of it. I feel like he has the economy to probably get quite a few units out here to maybe deal with this 4-gate. And
Certainly.
he just may be turtling here. He actually is opting to throw a forge down, so I think we're actually just going to see a standard 4-gate expo here, Gwen.
And 5th gateway going down, looks like preparing to do maybe a +1-5 or a +1-6 gate. Lings, have finally finished Ling speed. Gonna go ahead and poach on the back, and there's a lot of Lings and Roaches. We might see an all-in, another all-in here from Zerg. Another gateway going down to wall it off, and a cannon. This is the kind of response that you need in a situation like this. And here we go, Lings coming in, targeting that Nexus down. Protoss needs to respond.
Yeah, his sentries are kind of stuck there, but I think he's got enough force fields to hold this off if they're well placed. I think he's going to be just fine. If that cannon finishes, I feel like he's going to be in a pretty good spot. And it actually does complete. A couple roaches poking in, but they're really not going to be able to do much. Ooh, kind of a little preemptive force fields there. Kind of a waste, but he's got so many sentries that I don't think it's going to matter. Hey, if it does matter later in this game, Gwen, and those 3 force fields when it made the difference, you remind me I said that.
I certainly will. Looks like Zerg just pulling back with that, what is that, 2 pages worth of Zerglings there, and taking out those gold destructibles. Zerg looks like he's been doing some risky play here. I do like that, he follows it up with periods of droning, though. That's very, long-term focused and economical.
Yeah, and finally, Saint kills the Overlord that was sitting in his base, so not a lot of intel. He knows that he sees gates in the front, he sees gates in the main, obviously, so he knows this is going to be a 6 gates, as you mentioned, a timing push, and +1 is actually on the way now, so I would expect him to chrono boost that and, get quite a few gateway units out here. I would imagine he'll probably push, if he does, decide to right around 100 food.
And, looking at the map now, Hectic taking a 3rd base at the gold. Again, that's a relatively risky thing to do. Burrow, as well as I guess maybe often we see Zerg go for the tunneling clause plus Burrow, and that is the safe way to deal with the 6th gate as you're taking your 3rd, because you can just burrow under those force fields. But it looks like opting for roach speed instead. Not sure if I agree with that play, but we'll have to see how it turns out. There are a lot of sentries in this composition from Protoss.
Yeah, definitely. There is a lot of sentries, and one thing I wish we'd see from our Zugers a little bit is spreading his creep down to that, connecting his bases where he's trying to expand at the gold here. That actually, without roach speed, he is actually getting roach speed, but either way, you want to spread that creep. So I'm sure as a Zerg user, you will agree with me on that, and we actually do have an observer, and with a push like this, I almost wish I would have saw him throw down a council. Usually there's 2 versions. There's the 7 gate, and then there's the 6 gate with some type of council tech, which is usually blink stalkers. And the robotics facility is actually producing nothing but observers, and I do not see a robotics bay down, so I think he's committed to this gateway style of push here.
I don't really think I mind, big gateway armies. He just needs to have really good force field control. But hold on, Zerg moving out across the map. Speed has just finished for him. Gonna go ahead and looks like he's trying to flank with these Zerglings as the roaches come in from the other side. But force fields could nullify this entire army.
Yeah, that is a lot of roaches. That's a 45 supply lead for our Zerg user right now. He's got a much bigger army. It's just going to come down to control of the force fields, as you just mentioned, because they really dictate battles, and the Protoss is able to fight what units they want and obviously separate armies. So
certainly, and we do see Zerg, of course, moving out with those roaches.